Good morning. We are now in we're at the end of the second chapter. Hopefully when today's class is done, we will have completed the entire second chapter, and all that will be left to study in depth will be the cliff note that the Alter Rebbe inserts into the second chapter, which is very Kabbalistic and very exciting. It's very deep, but we will be able to learn it in a way that is meaningful to us, God willing, next week. And with that, we will have completed the second chapter. We said in this second part of the second chapter, the answer to the question, how is it that if every soul is rooted in the essence of God himself, then how are there so many gradations among Jewish souls? How could there be so many different kinds? As many Jewish people as there are in the world, that's how many different levels of soul there are in the world. Right? Previously, we were told using three different analogies that every Jewish soul is rooted in God's essence. And how can they come out into the world and be so very, very different from each other? Well, we said basically that the process of soul birthing is similar to the process of child birthing. That a spirit of Hashem, the same high, lofty material, enters the system of creation, enters the highest realm of existence called Atzilus, and then it goes to the next realm, taking on garments and undergoing some transformation along the way, goes to Bria, and then from there it goes to Yetzirah, again taking on more garments and undergoing some transformation on the way, and then it goes to Yetzirah, the third level of spiritual existence, and again taking on garments and undergoing transformation. Then it comes to the spiritual half, the spiritual part of the fourth realm, taking on garments and undergoing transformation until it finally reaches the physical world and is implanted in the body of the child. And the journey of each and every soul is different, right? That's called soul gestation. Just like there is the gestation of a fetus that allows the same original spark, the same original material to diversify into brains, hearts, lungs, ears, skin, toenails, hair. The same material diversifies because of the process of gestation, through the process of gestation, which takes 9 months in most cases, so that the same material can evolve and diversify into the highest and most important organs of the body, and even the lowest and most insignificant portions of the body. And it's all from the same source, and it's all from the same root. Exactly so it is with the souls of all the Jewish people. Not only are the souls of all the Jewish people different because their journey is different, but then there's another reason why they're different. And we touched on it briefly in last week's class. We did not have a chance to look at the source. I hadn't found it then, I found it now. And so I will share the source with you about the 3 levels of soul that could be consciously active inside the human being. This is from the Zohar. And it reads as follows: Vinishmasa, the soul that we're talking about, Ihi klilo b'telas dargin. Really, it's made of 3 levels. V'aldo telas shmohon, and for this reason, it has 3 names. Inun, there are 3 names linishmasa for the soul. Kegavna deraza ilo. Those of us that were together, that were learning the end of Tanya, called Kuntres Achron, the final pamphlet of the Rebbe's personal notes and letters. It's the final collection, the 5th volume of Tanya. We remember that we learned about the light that enters the world also has 3 levels called Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama of the whole world, of the whole spiritual cosmos. There's Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, light, life force. So just like in the whole world, there's nefesh, ruach, and neshama, so too in the human being, there's nefesh, ruach, and neshama. What does it mean? Nefesh, ha'ukma, we already learned, di'ihi tata mikoila. Nefesh is the level that's the lowest of them all. Ruach, ihu kiyuma. Ruach is its life force. Deshalto al nefesh, which rules over the level of soul called nefesh, the lowest level. V'ihu darga ilo Allah, and it is a level that's higher than it. Lekoyima Allah bechayla kidekachazi. It rules over the nefesh because it's higher than the nefesh. And then there is the level of neshama. Ihi kiyuma ilo al kaila. It is the highest one over all of them. Mishalto al kaila, and it rules over all of them. Darga kadisha, it's the highest. It's the holiest. Ilo al kulhu, and the highest. How does it work? The Elaine Telas Dargin, now these three levels, Pililon Behuv Bivnei Nosha, they're all included inside of humans. Le'inun dizachon bepulchana dimareha, to those who merit these levels of soul through their avodas Hashem, through their service of Hashem. Deha, that means, bikadmisa, at the beginning, isbei nefesh, a human being has the level of nefesh, which is the lowest level. The ihu tikuna kadisha, that is a garment, a vessel that is holy. Lis takona bo barnash, through which a human being can correct himself, can improve himself. Kivan da'asi barnash lis dako b'hai dargo, when a human being achieves perfection in that level, istakan li isatira beruach, he is improved so that he could be enveloped with a new level of soul, literally crowned with a new level of soul called ruach. It's a higher level. Dihu darga kadisha, which is a holier level, the sharia al nefesh, that will come to rest upon the garment of nefesh that you had previously, liyasatra bebarnash, to envelop the whole person, hahu dezoche, when people are deserving of that. Yeah, so we understand, and again, refer back to the video of my father's introduction to Tanya, where he gave us a summary, an overview of what it means to live on the level of nefesh, what it means to live on the level of ruach, and what it means to live on the level of neshama. All of that is available in that video. We'll try, no promises, we'll try to mark the chapters in those videos. I'm going to pause this video for a second. Okay, and that was the first two levels. And now the third level, kivan de istalak bahu, once you are able to rise up in both of those levels, the nefesh veruach, meaning nefesh and ruach, the oal, the iskan bepulchana demare kedekayais, and you rose up and you perfected yourself through avodas Hashem as you are supposed to. Kidain sharia alei neshama, then the level of neshama will come to rest upon you. Darga ilo kadisha, it's the highest and holiest level, the shalto al kela, that rules over all the other levels. Begin in a manner that li'isatira bedarga ilo kadisha, the person will be enveloped in the highest, holiest level. Begin li'isatira bedarga ilo kadisha b'chedein ihu shalima de kela, and in this way he can become perfect in every way. Shalim b'chol sitrin, complete from every side. We're talking about spiritually, obviously. Lemizke bi'alma da'ase, and merit the world to come. Be'ihu rechima de kuchabrichu, and he becomes beloved at that point by Hashem. And who is beloved by Hashem? Every Jew, really. But when the Torah says beloved by Hashem, we're talking about Tzaddikim. We're talking about people whose lives have been purified. That is the source in the Zohar of the teaching that souls have different levels, and therefore, even among humans, let's say you had human beings that had the same soul. It's not possible, but let's say still they would be different because they would be at different stages of their spiritual development, of rising from the level of nefesh to the level of ruach, and from ruach to neshama. So you have so that's why. That's the answer. You have as many levels of soul as you have humans. Yeah. And yet all of it is rooted, all of it goes back to and is in an incredible bond with its source in the supernal wisdom of Hashem, the root of everything, as in the analogy that every part of the child's body is rooted in the mind material of the parents, and the essential material that the parents provided for his creation. As it says in the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, the Chachamim taught, Shleisha Shutfin Yesh Ba'adam, there are three partners in the creation of man. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's God who provides the soul, the Aviv and the father, the Imoi and the mother. Aviv Mazriya HaLoiven, the father provides the white material, Shememenu Atzamis V'Gidin V'Tzipronayim U'Meich Shebereishoi, that develops into bones and sinews and nails and brain, V'Loiven Shabeinayim, and the whites of the eyes. The Imoim Mizras Eidim, the mother provides the red material, Shememenu Eriru Basar V'Sidus V'Shachar Shabayim, from which develops the skin, the flesh, meaning the muscles, and the hair, and the blacks of the eyes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem provides what? Nesin be'ruach u'neshama, the klaster panim. Hashem provides the person with his soul and his spirit, his personality, klaster panim, which means the way that he looks. V'riyas ha'ayin, the ability to see, u'shmias ha'ezen, the ability to hear, v'dibur peh, and the ability to speak, v'helech raglayim, and the ability to walk, u'bina v'haskal, the ability to understand and learn. All of this, you see that even the lowest portions of the child's body, physiology, are all rooted. They all go back to the original material, the original DNA material provided by the parents. And throughout the life of the child, even as the child remains his own independent human being, there's always a tie-in, there's always a connection between even the most insignificant portion of the child's body, the fingernails and the hair, to the source of all of the child's body, which is the brain matter of the parents. Of course, we're talking about in the Kabbalistic model, which is discussing the spiritual formation of a child, that spiritually the life that emerges from the bodies of the parents to become a body of a third human being, the child, is rooted in the very deep core and essence of the physiology of the human parents, which in Kabbalah is called the mind. The mind is the highest place, the deepest place. So in summation, if that's the right word, the child emerges from the mind of the parents, tells us three things. Number one, every part of the child, even those that were transformed through gestation to be the lowest pieces of the body, were all originally the mind material of the parents. Secondly, even after their transformation, those body parts still are deeply connected with their root in the mind of the parents. And thirdly, in the child itself, there's evidence of that connection because the body, the fingernails of the child will continue to live and be sustained by the brain of the child, drawing a direct link to the brain of the parents, and we said, there's a moral lesson there. The moral lesson is that this is because that's how it works in the collective Jewish spirit, that there are those among us who would be considered the brains of the Jewish people, and there are those among us that would be considered the hearts of the Jewish people, the eyes of the Jewish people, the hands of the Jewish people, the heels of the Jewish people. That's true across all of history. Moshe Rabbeinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the 12 tribes we're talking about, those are the brains, the hearts, the powerful connections between the collective Jewish people and Hashem. But in every generation, there is also the minor visage of the Jewish people, the smaller collective body of every generation, and every generation has its eyes, its head, its heart. the brain material, so to speak, those souls that are on the level of brains, called the heads of the Jewish people, Roshei Alfei Yisrael, they have a unique bond. Those souls have a unique bond between themselves and Hashem. Why? Because since they are the brain material, that means that their nature has not changed from what it was originally, brain material of the Father. Brain material of the Father was implanted in the process of creation and did not change that much, or did not change at all, and emerged to be brain material of the collective Jewish people. You understand what I'm saying? Those souls that really did not undergo a great change and came out of the creation process still on the level of Roshei Alfei Yisrael, of brains. I apologize for the crass language. Those souls are uniquely attached to their source, and through them, the rest of the collective Jewish body will receive its spiritual nourishment. What does that mean practically? Practically, that means the following. There's a discussion in the Gemara about a certain mitzvah that seems impossible to accomplish, but it is all cased in a very fun discussion between two great sages. It's based on the verse that you see at the top of the page, where it says, there is a command from Hashem, Li'yahavo es Hashem elekecho. We have to love Hashem, our God. Moshe Rabbeinu was commanding the Jewish people, you have to love Hashem, your God. Lishmoya b'koiloi u'ledavka boi, to listen to his voice and to cleave to him. Ki hu chayecha, because Hashem is the source of your life. Ve'oirech yamecha, and he is the length of your days. Lasheves alhu adama, that will enable you to live on the land. Asher nishba Hashem lavitzach l'Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov l'seis lahem. Says the Gemara, a story. Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar once said, Amei ha'aretz, people who are not engaged in Torah study during their lives, einon chayim, they are not alive, meaning they will not in the future come alive. Shene'emar mesim bal yichyu, the dead will not live. In simple English, that means wicked people who are called dead even during their lifetimes will not become alive during the resurrection. Tanya nami hochi. We learned a similar teaching in a brayso. Mesim bal yichyu yochol, you might think, lakol, that refers to everybody who has died, that they won't come back to life, that only those who are alive at the time of the redemption, at the time of the coming of Mashiach, will continue to live and won't die. Talmud loymar refoyim bal yakumu. So there you have the pasuk that says, the same pasuk says, the shades, refaim, will not rise. That means that only people who b'marpe atzmai midivrei Torah, where he weakens himself away from Torah matters. That's who the pasuk is talking about. So Rabbi Elazar is trying to say that who is considered wicked in this context? A person who does not busy themselves with studying Torah. Amar le Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan is very bothered by this teaching. He says, Lo nicha limarayhu. It wasn't good for him. It's not good for Hashem, for the master of these simple people, the Amart lahu, that you're saying about them such bad things. Hachi. Hahu b'mar pe'atzma lavedes kechavim hudiksiv. When the pasuk says that they will not rise for the resurrection, those who weaken themselves, it doesn't mean those who weaken themselves from Torah study. It means those who weaken themselves and give in to the urge to serve idols. That was Rabbi Yechanan's retort. Omar le, so Rabbi Elazar says back to him, Mikra acher ani deiresh. Dechsiv ki tal oires talecha, the pasuk says, the view says, because your dew, talking to Hashem really, or the dew that you collected, and the earth will bring back to life the shades. What does that mean? Refayim, again, it means shades, but it's talking about weak people. I have to take a look at that pasuk because so the verse is chapter 26, verse 19. It says, Yichyu mesecha nivelasi yikumun, let the dead rise, let the corpses stand up. Hakitzu v'ranenu sheichne afar, awake and shout in singing, those that are in the dust. Ki tal oires talecha, because your dew is like the dew on fresh ground. Va'oretz refayim tapil, you make the land of the shades come to life. Says Rabbi Lazar, how do I read that pasuk? I read that pasuk the following way. He says, Kol hamishtamesh ba'ir Torah, anyone who's busy with the light of Torah, the light of Torah will bring him back to life. V'chol she'ein mishtamesh ba'ir Torah, anyone who does not busy himself with the light of Torah, ein Torah, the light of Torah will not bring him back to life. And therefore, says Rabbi Lazar, those who did not busy themselves during their lifetimes with the study of Torah, the Torah will not be able to revive them when it comes the time for the resurrection of the dead. That's his opinion. There are other opinions, but that's not the point. The point here is Kivan de Chazye de Kamitztair, when he saw his holy teacher Rabbi Yochanan was very bothered by this teaching. Amar lei Rabbi, he says, my master, my teacher, Matzase lohen takona min haTorah, I found a way where the simple people who don't have the ability to work hard and busy themselves with Torah study, I found a remedy for them. I found a way to fix their plot, not their plot, to fix their lot. Because it says in the Torah, V'atem hadveikim b'Hashem elikechem, you who cleave to Hashem your God, chayim kulchem hayom, you will all live today. Live means you merit to come to the world to come. So then Rabbi Lazar says, but here's the question, is it possible to cleave to the Shechina? Does it not say that Hashem, your God, is a consuming fire? If you get too close, you'll be burned, which simply means if you cleave strongly to Hashem directly, you will cease to exist. Or, in even simpler terms, Hashem is an intangible. How can you cleave to something intangible like fire? Fire is intangible, you can't catch it. How can you cleave to fire? How can you cleave to Hashem? Ella, the advice is, Kol hamasi bitoy leTalmid Chacham. Anyone who marries off their daughter to a Talmid Chacham, or he does business with Talmidei Chachamim, with Torah scholars, those who busy themselves with Torah. Those who benefit Talmidei Chachamim bin Nechasav through their property. In other words, you donate to Talmidei Chachamim, you provide for the needs of the Talmidei Chachamim. Maila lavakosav kilo midbak b'shchina. Then the Torah will consider it as though you were cleaving to the Torah scholars. That through cleaving to the Torah scholars, the Torah will consider it as though you were cleaving to none other than the Shekhinah itself. This is what the Alter Rebbe bases his next statement on, which also is associated with the Zohar and the writings of the Arizal, where the Arizal says the following. I was not able to find this Kabbalistic text on any website, so I'll read it to you from my Svarim. The Arizal writes as follows. Wait a minute, let's back up. The body of the child, even the fingernails of the child, live from the brain of the child. That means our generation, we who are, let's say, the lowest among the Jewish people throughout history, because we are the last generation before Mashiach, the simple foot soldiers. We live by cleaving to Moshe Rabbeinu. We live by cleaving to Avraham Avinu. They are our brains, so to speak. The souls that we have are on the lowest levels of souls. The souls that our patriarchs and Moshe Rabbeinu had are of the highest level of souls, and that's the purpose for cleaving to Talmidei Chachamim. Now, it's important to note that the Talmidei Chachamim in each generation provide many kinds of life for the Jewish people. Some Talmidei Chachamim are your teachers, right? They teach you wisdom. Some Talmidei Chachamim are your Rabbonim. They guide you in your Jewish life. They tell you what to do and how to do it. Some Talmidei Chachamim teach and inspire whole communities and whole generations, giving them spiritual energy and enthusiasm because they are uniquely inspired or uniquely talented orators or good role models. But in every generation, there's a tzaddik whose soul is the brain of that generation. And by cleaving, sometimes it's more than one tzaddik. Sometimes it's a community of tzaddikim. By cleaving to those tzaddikim, we attach our souls to them. And thereby, we live spiritually. That's, by the way, the secret behind the letters that Hasidim write to the Rebbe. Every Chassid writes to his Rebbe the same letters, right? In the belief that his Rebbe is exactly this kind of tzaddik. The letter that you write is pan, pidyon nefesh. I'm giving away my soul to the Rebbe in attachment, in devotion, so that through my attachment and devotion to the Rebbe, I can be attached spiritually to the true source of life, the true source of my soul, which is ChabadCLE, the wisdom of Hashem, as it says, Kulam bechachma asisa. That everything was created from Chachma, from the supernal wisdom of Hashem. The souls of every Jew emanates, comes out of there. The tzaddik's soul remained Chachma material. My soul descended to become Heel material. So by attaching myself to the brain, so to speak, of my soul, I'm attaching myself to the original source of my soul's life. So in addition to attaching myself to a tzaddik that I will try to emulate, and in addition to attaching myself to a Talmid Chacham from who I will study wisdom and halacha, in addition to all that, there's the great benefit of being attached simply to the root of my own self. Yeah, the bond between the Chassid and the Rebbe is a connection of the simple soul and its own deepest self. And that's why one Chassid mused one time that if Shlomo HaMelech, when he wrote Shir HaShirim, he was trying to describe the deepest kind of love that exists. So he used the analogy of husband and wife, where two parties that are really unassociated with each other choose each other, and there's nothing stronger than that. Where two separate beings become one being. The greatest analogy that Shlomo HaMelech could find at the time is the analogy of a husband and a wife. And Rabbi Akiva said that's the holiest representation of the love between Hashem and the Jewish people that exists. The Chassid said, if Shlomo HaMelech had been a Chassid, he would have used the analogy of the love between the Chassid, the Rebbe, and the Chassid and the Rebbe. Because the idea is that the Chassid and the Rebbe are one thing. By the Chassid devoting himself to the Rebbe, the soul of the Chassid becomes enveloped in the soul of the tzaddik. They become one thing, and together they're attached to the source of life. That is the end of the explanation of how the soul, even while it's alive in the independent human being, is still rooted deeply in the original source of its from where it was carved, the wisdom of Hashem. Now the Alter Rebbe says something else. There is another reason why people are different in their spiritual levels, and it's not because of the souls. We just had a lengthy explanation about the different gradations of soul, right? That they each have a journey, each one emerges at a different level of the collective Jewish body. Some will end up being the hearts of the generation because they are naturally spiritually inclined. Some will be the minds of the Jewish people because they are naturally intellectually inclined, and so they spend time learning Torah. Some will be the hands of the generation because they're naturally inclined to do acts of kindness or to educate. Some will be the eyes of the generation because they are uniquely because their souls have a unique ability to foresee the future and prepare for it. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, sometimes they are divinely inspired, and sometimes they're just, street smart. Either way, it's because their souls are uniquely suited for that. And sometimes the soul will come all the way down to become a simple foot soldier. And yet, right? And that's why you have so many different kinds of souls. Not only that, you also have within each soul, you have a journey throughout life. You start off as a nefesh level soul. And then if you do well, you rise to a ruach level of soul. And if you do well, you rise to a neshama level of soul. So there are so many different places that a soul might find itself. And that is all addressing just the soul. Says the Alter Rebbe at the very end of chapter 2, there are other causes, there are other reasons why a soul, why a human being, why human beings are so very different from each other. What are those reasons? What are those reasons? The answer, the Alter Rebbe will tell us, is since a soul has to interact with a body, a soul has to interact with a body. Therefore, it needs a bridge. It needs a garment through which it can interact with the body. That garment is built by the parents. It's not rooted in a very high place. That garment for the soul is built by the parents. What? The parents' physical bodies provide the material that creates the physical body of the child. The soul of the parents, every soul is different. The spiritual investment of the parents is what they are thinking. What they are thinking while they are producing a child, that is the power that creates the garment for the soul that will be the bridge between the soul of the child and the body of the child, the soul of the child and the consciousness of the child. So let's take a look at the words of the Alter Rebbe in Tanya here towards the end of the second chapter of Tanya. Like this, I'm sharing the screen with you now. Shared. And this, that it says, what it says in the Zohar, and it says it in many places, in various places. It's not worth to look up those sources now. It's a combination of the many sources together, and the Alter Rebbe brings it all together very nicely in his text. And it's actually almost a direct quote from the Arizal's text, which I will read to you after we read the Alter Rebbe's summary, like this. It says that the essential factor in providing your child with a lofty soul, a good soul, instead of a weak or muted soul, it depends on the mindset of the parents during procreation. Masha'inkin b'nei Am ha'aretz, which means that the uneducated people will not be able to provide their children with a lofty soul. Hainu, why is that? Says the Alter Rebbe, that's not a contradiction to what I said before. What I said before is that souls themselves have levels. What we're learning now is that it's not up to the parents what level your child's soul is going to be. Hashem predicts. So then what do the parents contribute to the process? Hainu mishum. That is because, you see here, that you don't have any level of soul that doesn't have a garment that comes from the essence, from the nefesh of the father and the mother, from the spiritual part of the father and the mother. How do the parents express that garment? Here, if the parents will sanctify themselves, in other words, if they are engaged in procreation purely out of lust and purely out of an expression of the Yetzer Hara and the search for pleasure, then the soul will be then the garment for the soul will be crass. And even if the soul itself is very spiritually powerful, it's going to have to contend with a very thick and crass garment. The example, use the analogy of a bridge. The Alter Rebbe doesn't use it, and I haven't seen it in Chassidus anywhere, but this is an illustration that I've provided for my students, for myself. Imagine you have great treasures, yes? And the great treasures are across a big canyon. And the two sides of the canyon are bridged. There's a bridge that goes across. So you have two kinds of people. You have people who have brilliant, beautiful Golden Gate bridges. And all they have to do is march across, easy peasy. But they have no treasure, or they have very little treasure. And then you have people who have a tremendous store of treasures, but they have a rickety old bridge, like you see from the mountaintops in third world countries, where it's made of rope and some planks of wood, and every few yards there's planks of wood missing, and if the wind blows, the whole bridge shakes, and it's very, very dangerous and very difficult to get across that bridge. Same thing here. Sometimes you have a soul that has very powerful spiritual abilities, but the garment, the bridge between what it is capable of in potential and spiritual potential versus what it is capable of in actuality, it depends on this bridge that the parents provide through their intentions and through their attitude towards the act of procreation. That means even a very, very great soul requires the sanctification of his parents during the time of procreation. But the soul itself is not up to the parents. That's the Alter Rebbe's point. Sometimes you have a soul of a person that's very, very high. Could even be the parent, could even be a child of could even be the child of a human being that's very low. It's not up to the parents. Excuse me, all of this we learned from the Arizal. So now I'll read to you and translate to the best of my ability the Arizal's writings. And that will be the end of chapter 2. We'll come back next week to learn the cliff note, the footnote that the Alter Rebbe put in there, addressing a possible contradiction between all of these teachings and addressing the debate between Rambam and his perspective, which the Alter Rebbe accepts here in Tanya, and some of the earlier generation Kabbalists. Says the Arizal with regards to the importance of proper intentions during procreation. It It's impossible that a child should have any life force flow to him or her other than through his mother and his father. Imkain, therefore, hadin noisin, logic dictates, shehu chayiv b'chveidam, that he is obligated to honor them, vehem einam chayovin lichveidai, but they are not obligated to honor him. He is obligated to honor them, for they are the source of his life. He is not. They are not obligated to honor the child. Afalpi shehem misheresh echad, even though they are all from the same source. Amnam ze yihyek shahavis v'habanim hem misheresh echad. Aval amnam matzinu, yet we have found reiv ha'olam begul golim. Most of the world is recycled souls. Ve'ein lahem yichus v'kurva klal v'iker im avihem. Most souls are not spiritually rooted in the soul of their parents at all. Most souls, as much as family is connected physically and even spiritually, family is connected, but the actual core soul of the parent and the child are not necessarily related to each other at all. The adrab lefamim, sometimes neshama gavoya le'ein ketz, sometimes a very, very high and lofty soul, can be the child of a parent whose soul is from the very, very lowest levels. So obviously those two souls are not related to each other in terms of their source. They're not coming from the same place in the levels of the worlds, in the levels of creation, in the levels of soul. They're not rooted in the same place. So then why should a child whose soul is so high and lofty and powerful, how could he be obligated to honor a parent whose soul is so lowly and ignoble? The idea is easily understood according to what I have written. This is the Arizal writing. Yeah, tremendous privilege to learn directly from the Arizal. It's very exciting. I'm not 40, so I feel a little guilty. Because the answer is you don't have a human being whose soul is not dressed in a garment that is produced by the souls of his parents. All the good deeds and the achievements that the person will be able to do during their lifetime. In other words, all the potential from your soul that you're able to translate into action, that you're able to actualize, is only because of the garment that your parents provided your soul. This garment helps you to do a mitzvah in actuality, that he doesn't know how to do it when he is young, particularly when he is recycled. I don't know what that means. Because your previous sins don't let you do mitzvahs. And you need support from your parents, meaning from the garment provided by your parents. You need support to get beyond your failures. Similarly, if it is a brand new soul, and it is unaccustomed to being in this world, even the life that comes to him from heaven is also through this garment. That is the meaning of the partnership between the parents and their child. Now we understand why Torah is so insistent that people have the correct intentions during procreation. The reason is because if the parents will conduct themselves in a sanctified way during procreation, then they will be able to draw to their child's soul a holy and a sanctified garment, through which that child will merit the privilege of serving Hashem. Because even though the child might have a very lofty soul, He still needs that the parents should sanctify themselves during procreation, because if that is not done, then not only will the garment provided by the parents to the soul not be helpful, the opposite is true. This garment will damage the person, dugmas yetzahara, similar to a yetzer hara. It will incline the child to not succeed spiritually in this life. And that's also the explanation why, when a child sins, it's considered the sin of the parents. When a child is not doing well, it's considered, when a child does well, it's to the credit of the parents, and when a child is not doing well, it's also to the credit of the parents. And thus that's the end of chapter 2. What the Alter Rebbe has told us in chapter 2 is the nature of the divine soul. In chapter 1, the Alter Rebbe opened the whole conversation and said, there are two souls. The first is from Klippa, and we discussed it at length. And in the second chapter, the Alter Rebbe said, but the second soul is a veritable, literal piece of Hashem, and we discussed that a little bit. When we get to chapter 3, God willing, we will discuss the actual makeup of the various souls, and that will go on until chapter 9. Thank you for joining. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.